to the Heru Radio. I'm your host up there to keep it. Thank you for coming through. Along with my co-host, Selena 10,000 Years, Brother Sada Star, all in the D. I hope all is well. Hope everybody's good. I hope everybody can hear. Let me know in the chat room if you don't. Inshallah, everything is as clear as it can be. Okay, that's what's up. I hope everything is well. I hope everybody had a great Gregorian so-called for New Year, and everyone was safe. Those of us who are looking forward to natural New Year, which is March 21st, we still got a ways to go, but the way things are moving, things are so progressive, who knows where we or anything else will be by that time. Again, I hope everything is good, live, beautiful, and bountiful as you can make them, or as they can make themselves for you. And I pray that your so-called experience is one of a balanced nature, in which you're not punishing yourself for what you're not doing, or what you're not doing enough of, due to whatever pressure of stress, melanin, be experiencing as a conscious being in this time, in the specific vein that we refer to as Anglo-America, as it has now been dubbed by members of the so-called Republican campaign. So, as we look to what has been going on and what is going on, we should do the knowledge to how things have progressed into what they perceive as their so-called New Year. Even though no new seeds within the earth have blossomed, no new germinated pupas have come to fruition to create new larvae and forms of life that come out into the world and pollinate and do the things they do. Again, that happens in March. We are in the perceived Gregorian New Year. Therefore, as they say, when in Rome, you sometimes have to honor the customs of the environment in which you live, which is a necessary faction or a necessary, a necessary function or primary function of societal nature. Therefore, as we look into ourselves as the foundation of society, we have to unify the 7 to 9 kingdoms that exist within our overall spiritual civilization that resides in a physical vessel that we call our body, which has a basic constitution that can be identified by how one interfaces with other civilizations, meaning individuals who they come in contact with. Therefore, any location you come, instead of you becoming relative to it, it becomes relative to you. So it used to be when people had embassies, people in the embassies would solely live in a culture that their specific embassy came from. There was no real intermixing like that. The only Western things that were used were utilitarian things like cars, weaponry, and things like that, but the overall customary fashion was preserved. But sometime around the 80s, things began to switch, and it became more about opulence and greed and accumulating Western things that to the rich are trivial, but to the ordinary people make them feel like or look like gods. And so everybody comes to America because anybody can become rich in America, which is what makes it great. But the overall perception that America has created, or not really America, the perception of what the country was to be or is to be after 1791 is now the dream that everybody is basically living in. So it has created a subtle subculture that has become the dominant culture, which again is the perversion or the amalgamation of race and caste. So it isn't always about race for everybody. Yet, whenever some sort of governmental or some sort of hierarchical aspect of the societal nature comes in, and one person happens to be in a different color in that position, then those things come up. This is why black cops can tolerate white cops calling black kids niggas and stuff when they lock them up and stuff like that. Or they don't, try to take it personal, because it's a mode of disassociating and putting oneself in a custodial position through the auspices of trauma in the form of the whole, interaction between cop and quote-unquote criminal. So, to inaugurate this whole Gregorian burning house, I got an email from a friend that as soon as the whole so-called New Year switch, the oldest 100-year clockworks in Peru, Illinois, burnt to the ground, allegedly by two messed up kids. Wink, wink. Which then symbolically creates this 100 years worth of burning. Remember the 100 years of lynching that was written by Ida B. Wells? This is like 100 years now of burning, but the clockworks representing burning time. You know what I'm saying? Or turning time to ash, symbolically in the ushering in of this so-called Gregorian year in which 2012 is allegedly the end of the quote-unquote world according to these people. So this bonfire of the vanity, if you will, that was ritualistically set, again in Peru, which represents Amaru, which represents America, which then represents Tupac, which then represents rebellion, which then represents uprising. This thing was now, put to the kindling and now gone, which also represents history, or an aspect of false history, if you will, because it's an anglicized history being burnt, cast to the ashes in the wind. So depending on how you look at it, see what I'm saying, it becomes what it's meant to be in an artistic aspect, but also in a hyper-spiritual aspect, because all of these events are being embossed in the species mind pattern of all of us, whether we realize it or not. So, at the same time that goes down, this dude signs in the indefinite detention bill, which then puts it out there that they could just lock people up for as long as they want without arresting. So not only do you have to fear arrest now, you have to fear being detained, which then in some cases will last longer than arrest because there's no set time in which you get out. but you're not arrested. So then, therefore, you don't have rights. See what I'm saying? So this is a way around arrest. You know what I'm saying? So, again, this is put forth by the same person who received the Nobel Peace Prize, but then at the same time brags about killing everybody. Yet the real people behind it all is really what they refer to as the principal committee. I don't know if anybody's done the knowledge to these people in government. There are all these new things since this guy's become president. There's been all these new like little alphabet agencies that have just been coming up. So you have the super committee, which was an autonomous committee, which is basically if they could do that, they could just set up what they call a star chamber. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that, anybody in law. Star chamber is when a bunch of officials of the municipality decide that a certain group of people have to go based upon over preponderance of crime or whatever it is they're bringing to the body politic. But this goes in all levels of society. So it's not just criminals. They start with criminals, but then they expand it to whoever they don't like. So these things become the subdivision of what they refer to as the transfer of government. Or, if you will, these things, these agencies are basically transmitting utilities of political and ideological agenda fueled by a certain degree of racial and genetic symbiosis. Because it's a need to feed on the soul of the human now, more than just the physical material. They've turned it up a notch. So, but this shows how desperate they are, because this super committee, the super committee is 12 different people that got together to help work out some type of another budget that they don't have the money to pay for. That's one. But then the principal committee is really the people that's running everything else. That's basically Hillary, Panetta, head of CIA, Petraeus, who they pulled out of Afghanistan and brought this domestic capacity down the line, Secretary of State or whatever. And that's what it is. And the other rights chick. So they're basically the ones that's really kind of puppeting the string with it all. But all of them are all collectively and then individually backed by the banker people who was caught up in the derivative thing. You see what I'm saying? For those people that don't know what a derivative is, that is the ability to pay or bet, to enter into a contract with somebody and then sell the interest on the person defaulting on that contract before that person has the ability to make good on the contract. So that means that as soon as you make the contract with the person, you go to another bookie and then tell the bookie that this guy ain't going to pay, so you should buy this debt from me at this percentage. You understand? So that is the basis of the subprime thing, the banking thing, all of that stuff started and went south from that. So strategically, these banks are referred to by some Wall Street people as zombie banks or Walking Dead banks or RIP banks. And these banks are basically set up to funnel money through and out. Because no banks have the right to give money, they can only loan money. So all banks basically are launderers. You understand? All banks are basically launderers. Because going all the way back to Mayor Amschel Rothschild, when he first started taking the gold for the king, for the prince that he was taking the gold for had seized that gold from Moors or pirates that he had met during the Venetian War. So it was all stolen booty anyway. You know what I mean? So essentially all of this money started from somebody else's money. That's why it's hard to get rich with your own money. You need help from other people's money to create the circulation and the belief in the money, keep the money coming. Because the money is the currency. But see, the money is the fictional or fractional, fractional reserve that creates the stimulus that allows the public perception of the product to be viable. So the more people will buy it, the more it seems like you need it. But back in the days, up into the 50s, they was making things too good. The technology they had in the 50s was cruder, but it lasted longer. The technology they got now is better, but it's more fragile. They're going to come out with the new iPad that's basically going to be as thin as a piece of paper. What's going to happen after that? How thin you going to get after that? After that, the next step is to get it in your hand. Then it'll really be thin. So all of this is going on at the same time. They're trying to push through this new AIDS pill to cure AIDS. However, there's still, it cures AIDS, but it may not cure HIV. See? Because AIDS was the antigen that manifested out of the HIV. That's where that Henrietta Hanks thing came. If you want to check it out, the patent on it is, the AIDS cure patent is 5676977, the U.S. Patent Office. If you want to read about it. Another funny thing is there was a satellite, or there's going to be a satellite that's going to be coming down somewhere in Iran, which may be detrimental due to the process in which they got it. And based on the political strata and all that stuff that's going on over there, it looks like this is all part of the whole push to get in it. I think the end game, or the beginning, the end of this, will be the whole Palestinian state thing. Nobody in the world wants them to really have their state like that, which probably means they should have it. But at the same time, nobody wants them to do it. So the United States knows that that's the only way that they're going to be able to create a peace or a stabilized relationship with a fledgling country inside of Israel's own border. Because even though they work together, they're still working against each other. They've mastered the Israeli state, or the Palestinian state, would mean that Israel would have to give back most of the land that it took during the 6-Day War to create a functioning state, which would also mean that the Palestinians would then have the ability to go and receive open funding from states, which means other countries could basically give them money, and in return, the Palestinians would open up a section of their country for this place to have an embassy. Israel, which strategically is not good for Israel. So due to the Iran situation, this has to be brought along gradually. So the outer states outside of Iran have to be destabilized to a degree to allow them to have cover to do and get into Iran, to do reconnaissance or whatever they want to do, which is a natural process of foreign policy in the modern world. All foreign policy nowadays is espionage. It's not about the friendship of nations. The friendship stuff is just to get in, figure out what you can get from the country, and then once you're in, then start to flip it. So, based upon this satellite that initially was Russian, but somehow fell on a Russian satellite they're trying to send to Mars, somehow got rerouted and is now going to conveniently crash somewhere around Iran. Which then can herald whatever else they want to do. They could then say, oh, well, that's just we got to do what we got to do through the Red Cross or whatever. Either way, at this rate, the United States, as it says, is basically the only country that has the power, let's say, vote for a Palestinian state. But if they did that, that would turn them directly against Israel, and then all joint operations they got going would have to get flipped, which means everybody that was in those operations would have to get flipped. You know what I'm saying? They call that cleaning house. So this, spiritually, is the war that's being played out through, again, the different archdeities that are manifesting or channeled through these different clandestine organizations. Part of the Hashemite training that they received, or that was given by those Moors during the 1300s, was that each order or house or lodge has to have a resident deity. And that resident deity has to be supplicated and is the deity that then resides and grows stronger with everybody that becomes part of the group. So symbolism and all of these things become necessary to emboss this psychic reality on the apprentice or whoever is entering into the agreement of whatever the group is going to be. There was a guy named Abraham Yehuda, who was a Palestinian Jew, who brought Newton's manuscripts and donated them to Israel when they started to fund Israel as a state in the 1800s. But this is significant because Newtonian physics is the basis of the science that most of these people are giving to the masses. But this is not the science that they are practicing with each other, which then shows the so-called Jewish connection to how mathematics and things are being taught to people who they perceive as goyim, meaning human cattle. Or anybody that's not Jewish. But Jewish is not Hebrew. zombie banks have funded all of this to such a degree that they are now trying to talk China into getting into the derivative thing, which really would be the end of China as a supposed superpower if they get involved with all of that. But you never know. Meanwhile, the Saudis and these people are trying to talk to Russia and all of them on the low, but they are being, bullied and threatened. So all of this is creating a reactionary scenario in the world populace, which is spilling over into the anxiety that we will sometimes feel during the day when you're out amongst a group of people. You are feeling and perceiving the global thought form of fear that was created during the 9/11 ritual. Whenever you're in a mass public place like that, especially when you're in New York. They've counted 100 deaths in the country since January 1st. Because January being Janus, being Capricorn, is going to show us the dual nature in reality. Because Janus is the god that has the head in the back of his face in the back of his head. So he's always looking. In both directions at once. So now that they're creating trying to turn the TSA into the arm of the NDAA, which is the whole National Defense Initiative thing that they want to perpetuate, you're hearing less about Homeland Security. That's because as they prepare for whatever drills or false flag stuff they're going to do, they're trying to put in the people's mind through visual representation that there's a militarization going on. I also think that this is going to lead to another supposed crash in the market, which is going to lead to some sort of second bailout, which is going to create the impetus for them to flip what they want to flip in terms of like the open going in against people stuff. Only because that would be the cover for them to go in and get as much money as they want, because all of the congressional stuff would be suspended. The Treasury and all of that will fall under the military for protection. And the present military would then be put under guard. So when it comes to the so-called Middle East, the Suez Canal is really, the primary goal, as well as the destabilization in the outside areas to make it more palpable for them to get into, Iran. Which then will create a civilized situation where Iran will attack Israel. Once that happens, the United States will probably go directly into Pakistan, which would then force China to go into, or urge China to urge North Korea to go into South Korea, which would then get Russia to back China by going in and helping prop up Syria. And so all the dominoes fall as everybody sweeps to the Red Sea or the Caspian to cut off everybody's access to the ships, which will then create a heavy destabilization due to the lack of leadership in places like Libya, which will then get flipped due to the French and German extraction of funds due to the repayment that they are supposed to receive due to them bailing out the EU, which essentially is the financial oligarchy that funds the primary banking interest of the United States, which is the IMF/Department of Treasury. So this creates a panic amongst these newly created alphabet agencies and subdivision underground special ops who get funding for whatever they do for them. So this is when they get called in or green-lighted to, I don't know, become snipers in a Syrian suburb to just shoot people. And then the media here blames these snipers on insurgents in Syrian government who are against the Syrian government. But if it's the Syrian people rebelling against the Syrian government, why are the snipers shooting the Syrian people? These, again, are questions that are now under the presumed, let's say, watch of all of us. So the question is, if everything is become militarized, what does this mean for the soul and the culture of a people who not only created the art of war, but manifested it out of the need to adapt to the environmental factors that we allowed to take place. So a lot of us are joining up with the same system to perpetuate a place for themselves, which is a necessary or an actual part of the human condition. The isolation aspect due to what modern economists as well as theoretical political analysts are referring to as genocidal austerity. These are the new buzzwords that they will be using and will be tossed around in front of us to make us think something that it may not be. But this genocidal austerity is basically perpetuated by the same principles committee that we were talking about, which basically are the main ones pushing for this Iran. The war thing is money, and everybody that gets into that game becomes a part of the actual perception of what that game represents, which is the acquisition of power through a militarization of the soul, meaning that war is more important, or is an actual form of life that is used to perpetuate or bring peace. Therefore, you can't have peace without war. Therefore, war is the basis of peace. This is the 1984 Orwellian view of the modern world. So this all came out of a paradigm in which these people were not only physically oppressed, but put under the boot of something that they perceived as the antithesis of who and what they were, which is Islam. So, whereas the Comesian thing existed, and then the Hebrew thing kind of came and kind of became a new hot thing, and people got into that. Then from the Hebrew thing, people got into the Christian thing. And from the Christian thing, people got into the Muslim thing. You know what I'm saying? So the progression of these dominating deities and the bloodletting that went into the establishment of these not only permeated into the earth, into the natural seeds that was then put into the earth with all these dead people, all of them fields. How you think they got so lush? There was a whole business that they used to have back in the days when they used to see the guy carting all the dead bodies. They put them in the big pit. Eventually, all of those bodies decay and go into the earth as the process of Aseer, which is carbon 14. From the cosmic rays to the soil back to the cosmic rays. So these actual functional principles of what we would see as society are really just vehicles of expression for these unseen hands that is working with these things to mess with us. But all of the messing with you from the spirit realm is all subtle. Yet the manifestation that comes from sometimes in the physical can be somewhat instantaneous. Sometimes you can just see somebody, or they see you and they just not like you. They don't know nothing about you or whatever. Or they think they know you based upon what they heard somebody else say about you, or what they think you look like, or they judge you. People just don't look with their eyes anymore. They judge you with their eyes. So if they see a rose, it's not that the rose is beautiful, it's that the rose isn't beautiful enough. Or there's a better rose right next to it. See what I'm saying? It's never what it is. Because what it is only what it is. But what it is not just what it can be. It can be a rose in the garden, or it can be one of the roses in a vase in your house. It's whatever you perceive the action and notion to be. Therefore, the economic value of reality is the aspect that is factored in the ratio of E, which is energy. It is something that is functional in an energetic pattern. We can follow it based upon how it accumulates and moves in a certain fashion. So it's not just what it is you are doing that's bringing the cash or economic value to you. It is what you are providing. So, in my view, we're not here to get money. Getting money is something we do while we're here. We are here to pursue happiness. And money is a vehicle to make that happen. Therefore, economics is a tool to use money to become happy. But because happiness is not a part of the pursuit of money, you see what I'm saying? Everybody who gets money is unhappy. Yet, it doesn't stop us or anybody else from wanting to get money. See what I'm saying? Because it's not the money. It's not even the economics. It's what are you providing of of substance for the masses in a environment where everything is fluff. This is the only era in my life that I've seen where so many lame-ass niggas is winning. I've never seen an era where there's been so many people who have little or no talent, or the people who have a little bit of talent, you know what I'm saying, stand out because everybody else is so bad. So if you got a little bit of something and you're willing to exploit yourself or exploit your family or whatever, you can win. This is not something that I would have liked to see the world go into, yet these people are obviously more controllable. You understand? They're more malleable to the agenda and the need to perpetuate whatever corporate sponsor, derivative bank, is sponsoring. That's why you can't have no political agenda. So these white, quote-unquote, Caucasian groups or whatever can come out and say whatever they want. But so Eminem can come out with white America and tell you exactly what's going on, how he got turned out by them, what they did, all of that. These, quote-unquote, other rappers, they talk about everything else. Because there's an underlying thing that says if you talk about something meaningful, there is something in which you won't sell records. So even we as people tell ourselves that. You know what I'm saying? Conscious people tell ourselves that. We break rappers up ourselves. We break music up ourselves. Oh, he's the conscious rapper. Oh, he's a gangster rapper. Or we do this ourselves. We categorize ourselves now. When hip-hop was the exact opposite of that. We used to boycott the Grammys. Now niggas just take their pictures with Grammys, you know, dumping weed in it and kissing them and shit. You know what I'm saying? Dusting them off. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, that's progress to a degree, but it's also regress or degress in the political and spiritual awareness. You understand? So this genocidal austerity is the amount of people that that is going to get out of here or get put out of the planet before they can erect a moratorium on the human space. You understand? Because you or us are perceived as the opposite of what we are. We are seen as corporate vessels or dollars. So that's it. You understand? That's not what you are. That's not what we are, but that's what the position is. So it's about uplifting your present position or our present position to the point that we can actually stand unified behind something. So that way, in the event of something goes down, there is a cluster of people who do not agree in a general consensus, the same way that you have the Tea Party or anything else. So we all know that the Tea Party is basically Alex Jones listeners and the rest of these guys. The same people who threw listen for you. Only difference with them is they all lived in the suburbs and they all had, you know, money and trust funds and stuff. And even the ones that didn't aspire to get good jobs and married into families that did. Because, see, what white folks do is they go through a stage where they take their parents and then they totally rebel and they go against what, you know, whoever the stern one in the family wants them to do. But eventually, you know, they, you know, eventually take over the corporation and do whatever. Just like they did during the 60s. The people in the 60s, Jerry Garcia and them, did Grateful Dead, which were MI6 agents. Jerry Garcia and them, they did the same thing. Came into a community, gathered intelligence, kept it moving, and used the music. The music was really bad. Pink Floyd was better than that. And that was like lack of interest. So, in the end, we're talking about, again, the movement of racial identification through subtle and non-tangible means based upon the energy produced from one to the other. So, yeah, the second bailout thing is probably going to go down. Because they can't settle anything. The reason why they can't settle anything is because they're not really settling government. They're a transitional government into whatever they're going to whatever they want to turn the country into. So they don't really have anybody to beat this guy, But, again, he's not really, running stuff like that anyway. And what he is doing is creating also alternative bases for strategic maneuvering, both structurally as well as domestically. All of these things, because it all has to be staged just in case one company loses funding. Then you got to have some type of event, and then that event allows them to get funding again or more funding to do whatever. So it's basically like when Rumsfeld said, "Yo, if you cut the Department of Defense budget, there will be attack." So that's ambiguous. It could be taken two ways. It could be taken, are you saying that there's going to be attack if I don't give you money? Then he'll say, no. I'm saying if you don't give us the money, something goes down, then there could be an attack, and we won't have it. See? But the first statement that he gave was not to the public. That was to the other agencies or whatever that he is speaking to. That's what I mean when I say that it's a Freemason thing. It's not necessarily Masonry or Freemasonry. It's evil, inherently evil. I'm saying that it has always been a political tool since the 1700s, starting with Adam Smith, a.k.a. Adam Whitehouse, who wrote The Wealth of Nations, to perpetuate this agenda of destabilization. Because Smith basically said, when you read The Wealth of Nations, it basically said that any country holding gold at that time was then a country to be done away with, because gold could be amassed by people like bankers or whatever who were not countries, and then be used to leverage that country against another country. Therefore, all countries should be off the gold standard. That became the financial modicum of the British East India Company from that point on. Understand? That became from the 17, let's say, when that came out, 1713, somewhere in the 1700s, when that thing came out, the British East India Company, the whole agenda switched, and they broke the company up into different subdivisions, and these became the first open corporations in the modern world. The corporations that existed before that were the satellite corporations created by the Babylonian Empire, which is why all of those corporations or countries had a mystery system that was functionary through the priesthood, a.k.a. the financial establishment. The priests and the bookkeepers are the same people. Think about the Akenton dynasty. Applying to him, Amenhotep. When you talk about them, he was coming in at a time when things was cool, and then he just flipped it up and put a whole sector of the priesthood or whoever out of work. That created animosity, and it created a different view of the quote-unquote, Egyptian world, which then led to the eventual establishment of the Ptolemaic dynasty. The African people, the African scholars tell you is Greek or white, but there was no white people at the time that this thing existed, and people was not called Greek. And when you look at the pottery and the phenotypical evidence of that time, you see that these people was black people. So whether you call them Greek, whether you call them Etruscan, whether you call them Ionian, whether you call them Minoan, whether you call them Median, whether you call them Macedonian, whatever you want to call them, you're still talking about black people. And that's the problem. You know what I'm saying? It's like you always got to establish that. It's like you always, as the conscious person, is in a situation where you got to establish that you're not like the rest of these people. And it's not that you on some, I'm a leader, I'm better than them. It's like, no, I'm not of the same mentality, even though I share the same complexion. And there's nothing wrong with doing the knowledge to that. But at the same time, if some shit goes down, and I'm the only black person there, and there's a black person there, God willing, I have the strength enough to have that person back, regardless. Because that's what the white man would do for his people. And for you. On some bullshit. On some bullshit. And there's nothing wrong with saying that you're not of the same mentality of a lot of people, man. You're not supposed to. We're not supposed to. You're not supposed to look at everything the same way that the group looks at it. That's what makes you you. The people who always go along with the group or eventually come into the group or whoever, whatever, when the group is not of the mentality to accompany what the purpose of the group is, then it's useless. Look at Occupy Wall Street. That's obvious. Well, on one vein, they tried to co-opt it. That didn't work, so they started bashing. So maybe the ones that they started bashing and attacking were the ones that weren't part of the op. But even that, there was no overall projection of what they wanted to do. You're talking about all the shit you're seeing on YouTube, but what are you backing that up with, and what are you contributing alternatives to that? Are you saying we should impeach these people? Are you saying there should be treason charges filed? Are you saying that all the banks should be seized by the people and then the government should be impeached? Are you saying that they should enact the SARA? Or what are you saying? Nothing. So what happened? I saw an ad where they had a GQ shoot where they had models down there posing in front of the Occupy people in Armani suits, Gucci suits and shit. You know what I'm saying? It's a joke. It's a joke. That's why they want to bigger. That's why they feel they want bigger and better things. They're like, no, we already got this nigga locked. We got to worry about these other dudes and cement ourselves in this thing before everything comes down. Because this is about us, always on the spiritual and metaphysical level, meaning physical, non-physical, but it's a balance. It's not about being positive totally, but negative totally. It's about preserving my eye and knowing when to exact or exchange wrath when necessary. Always though to preserve the inner self or defend the weak. That's Islam. You see? But people who look like us say that we practice Islam because the Sunnis back in after William of Orange took over, another black man took over, and they set up a trading post. They agreed that the Sunnis and the Circassians, meaning Caucasian mercenaries, would recognize each other's religion as the primary or real religion, even though the functioning aspect of the religion and the republic was universal. They created this pact between them. That's this whole exchange between Islam and Christianity. why the Crusade always is going to be a thing. Because the Crusade is directly connected to World War I, World War II, and everything else. Because it's the same people. It's just now skin tone and changed a bit, and now you don't know who's who. Because everybody's informed. Well, not everybody, but not people not living right. And we talk about it in Catholic, or when you're willing to not do that, then it becomes something. So we're moving into a stage where there's going to be more and more planets revealed, which means that our universe is expanding, which is evidence of our consciousness is expanding. So it's symbolic at the same time as our consciousness is expanding outwards and inwards, that the external forces are seeking to raise walls and stuff like that to block it in. That means that exponentially they're losing because they have to exert more control. The more control they exert, the more they're showing you that they don't have any control. So it's not about this society. It's about the society they want to build after that. So after White House, a.k.a. Adam Smith, created the Wealth of Nations, the British Indian Company split itself up into the different factions that eventually become colonies. You know what I'm saying? And each one is then governed by the same principle. So they move from a gold exchange. Primarily the gold, silver is now hoarded and used to fill the royal coffers. And then from there, they establish different plantations to get into the agricultural aspect of finance, goods and services, textiles, import, export. And those countries that didn't want to participate with them were injected with opium and syphilis and diphtheria and as well as internment. So all of those guys, basically, some of them stayed and eventually had children, and then those children became operatives of either the government or the Anglo establishment that was seeking to bring itself in. So every 25,824 years, the Earth gets this wobble and axis, you know, as measured by the equatorial coordinate system. This is primarily caused by the precession of equinoxes, as well as the motion of the actual stars themselves. So the vibratory frequency that is created when one moves, meaning like when you run, you get a wind moving behind you or through you. That's a vibration. And that sound is then echoed by or magnified by a planetary scale. So the movement of these things creates a vibration, which then creates the orbit, which is the magnetic frequency that holds everything in place. Therefore, in that, everybody would then, for each level of their awareness based upon the pineal, pituitary hypothalamus, could then potentially have their own zodiac sign. So like your mind will have, let's say, a sidereal system. Your soul may have a Vedic system. You know what I'm saying? But the unification comes in whatever calendar you have consciously participated in. You know what I'm saying? In chat, somebody wrote about the 40,000 laws. That's really funny. But again, the 40,000 laws, the 47 negative confessions, you see what I'm saying? The 10 commandments. It's all different inlays of new doctrine that they want to use to perpetuate the new, whatever it is they want to call it, which has nothing to do with where the species itself is going and what you are doing in your immediate life. It trickles down to us eventually based upon the harassment of law enforcement as well as the surveillance that they have on most of us. That gets agitated. But essentially, it is what it always has been. What you don't realize is that they was doing this to your mother and your father too. They was doing this to their mother and their father too. But because they've created movies and stuff where people who talk about this seem paranoid or to be called paranoid or to be written off because they don't want you to take it serious, that, well, really, they don't want you to believe that you're that important. Keep it really real. They don't want you to believe that you really matter like that. They'd rather you believe that you are just a regular person that doesn't really have anything to contribute to anything and not that important. You're so insignificant, why would they want to look at you? So if that's the case, then why are they looking at you? Why they see people looking and following you and tapping your shit and checking in them? They know we're not terrorists. They know that. Based on the profile that they got on you, based on the profile they got on everybody, they know 95% of the people, no matter how militant and into this they are, they ain't going to do nothing. Physical, meaning you ain't going to go no matter how much you know like that. There's only but so far you can take it unless you're willing to take it that far. And most of us got kids, got families, and all this other shit. So when people be trying to hype up the people that go out there and scream at these crackers and all this other shit, these people that's trying to fight riots, the people that's government orchestrated to get you to adopt an agenda and ideology based on an emotional frequency that's given off by a planetary body in the form of an individual that's giving off sound waves that are creating a magnetic frequency that is attracting you as another planetary body to it through the ideology and the feeling of the adrenaline that comes from the speech. So the person talking could be saying anything. You know what I'm saying? But if there's enough energy and enough potency behind it, enough people hyping it up, you understand what I'm saying? See, it's like we're also all spread out. You know what I'm saying? Which is good, but it's also not good because when you spread out like that, that's what it is. They can say that you're not really a people, like what they did with Katrina. They spread everybody out in another African, in the greatest African diaspora since the quote-unquote slave trade. This Katrina shit goes down, and now all that land still ain't built up. People still can't go back and get their stuff. The city done claimed it, and they put in a Hindu man. Where you get this Indian dude? Where's this Indian guy coming up? Whatever. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. But when you look at his record, who is he down with? The Council of Foreign Relations, the PFA, the CPA, the AFA, the VMA, the LAA. You know what I'm saying? These are real agencies. What do they do? Does it matter? You know what I'm saying? Who polices this? Who's the corporate police? They need, if you want to really be real creative, corporate, right before the 9/11 thing, they was going to have the biggest wave of white-collar indictments ever, going all the way back to the Milken thing, the guy who was down with the assassination of Larry Flint, who got caught up with that. They created a situation now with the greed and all of that, that they can never pay anything. Therefore, nothing is paid for. Therefore, everything can be bought. So in a societal climate in which this is the primary function of exchange, the only way to preserve the society is to use genocidal austerity, in which by process you raise the cost of living at a time when people have less, which will enforce a survival reptilian fight or flight perception, and which the reptilian section of the brain, the survival aspect, will become the primary function of the brain, which means the higher level of the brain will not be the primary resonator of where you are processing your stuff. They want to keep your emotions bottled up in the reptilian. That's why those of us who be going through certain stuff can feel a lot of tension in the back of your neck, towards your back of your neck to the base of your skull. You feel tight. You know, those of us will get massages or whatever. That is the extraction of pineal fluid due to the understimulation, if that's a word, the understimulus of positive reaction. This is a physical example in the body of you taking on too much of the physical experience. Your body is now showing you a physical representation by preserving more pineal fluid to the base. So, you know, when it comes to the establishment of a particular group or ideology, we have them. It's just, in my view, the consolidation of these is necessary. But the little ideological differences that exist are also exacerbated in the form of the having to deal with and always having to translate everything through this old Western form of economic exchange. So currency, you know, whether you want to use gold or silver or cowrie shell, whatever it's going to be, is great, but everybody will have to agree to use it. Everybody would have to agree to function with it solely. And to get the outer circles to recognize it would then have to go through the channels of establishing a independent sovereignty, which at this stage would have to come from some sort of association of spiritually minded people of the various aspects of our consciousness that has been physically manifested as what we would perceive as spokespersons, if you will, of these particular groups or societies or orders, and keep it free of clandestine nature, or give them the power to establish some sort of consistent thing within that, and trust that these people are going to do that. But to do that, we have to first agree to trust each other, and most of us don't. That's what the adversary knows too. Yeah, it becomes a situation where everybody feels like they got to fend for themselves. So we do, But it don't change the fact that we all are still here, some way connected to each other. And the only way we're going to be able to function is find a way to be in a position in which we can not only validate each other culturally, but identify each other culturally. Then that becomes the basis of, again, association, which then by modern standards would then lead to a confederation, which then would then lead to a declaration, which would then lead to a constitution. If this was done in the ancient republican form of government based on the family of nations. But again, the United States is not a part of the family of nations. The United States is part of the United Nations. The family of nations is what we are part of. But as I've said in previous shows, they look at it like we abandoned our government. The last of it being during the Battle of Lake Erie. You do the research and comparative research of the national tribes and the people who were involved in that war, you would see that it was really a war dealing with us. And the folding or the taking down of what they refer to as the cutting down as cherry tree. See if we got a call. 757. You on Super Heru Radio?
Shove enough of this factory so far up your stupid wop ass that you'll shit smell for a year. I can blow this cocksucker's head off.
It's not. 757.
God.
757 on Super Heru Radio. 301. You want Super Heru Radio?
Peace.
Peace.
Can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you.
Hi, how you doing?
How you doing, Queen?
I'm good. Happy holidays, man. Happy New Year.
You as well. Good to hear
Thank
from
you. Thank you. I was just wondering, what is, some of the things that we could do since it's a new year and all, and I still see that people are still on their own bullshit, as far as, with friends and family. What is, some of the things that we could do for the new year to, keep away from these people? Or any type of negativity or whatever.
One thing you could do, this is an old school, what they call a homespun remedy. This is an old school. And what you do is you get the names of the people that's getting on your nerves,
mm-hmm.
and you write their names on pieces of paper,
mm-hmm.
and then you ball up the pieces of paper into individuals. Take each name, rip it up, ball it up into a little ball. Then you get an ice tray. And you fill the ice tray up with water.
Mm-hmm.
And you put each one of the names in each one of the trays and stick it in the back of the freezer. And then forget about it.
Wow.
You'll find whatever intentions that they have towards you symbolically will be frozen. By the time you realize it, but You just got to keep it in there. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Then if they don't go, what you do is you take one of the ones that just won't go. You take the individual ice tray that they froze it in, and you flush it down the toilet. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I didn't hear the last word. What you said?
The last thing, if they don't go away, the individual, take out the ice tray of that individual, and you flush it down the toilet, or you bury it.
Oh, okay.
You know, and that's it. Or you could get a small piece of onyx crystal, and the next time you see them, have it on.
Okay.
And give it to them.
Okay.
Like, I want you to have this.
Okay.
If they don't take it, that's all good. But the offering of giving it them the onyx is going to, from that point on, kind of keep them away from it.
Oh, okay.
Also, you can clean out the crib thoroughly and try to get these things called copper. They make them out of copper. They're like almost like a doorstop, but they're for the corners in your ceiling. They almost look like little pyramids.
Oh, okay.
And it creates a circular energy. Because we used to live in like pyramid style structures and dome or oval size structure. So for the past 150 years, 250 years, we've been living in these vertical rectangular square domiciles, which somewhat alter how we interact with stuff. There's a lot of sharp angles, you know. So you want to keep your crib in a way where things are somewhat circulating in an even fashion, you know.
Oh, okay.
And you can do a practice where after you clean out everything, you lay a line of brick dust in front of your door and make sure you notice who comes or who has issues stepping across the threshold. That'll tell you out. Some people drop their keys, some people trip, some people who kind of stop and ask to come in, you know?
Okay.
And, you know, just strive not to take too many things personal, and strive to go with your intuition. Now is the time to trust your intuition more than everything. Try to practice thinking in your womb, you know?
Right.
Like, try to practice transferring your consciousness to your womb, back to your mind, meditation, between now and New Year. The more you do that, by the time New Year comes, March 21st, be able to see the fruition of what it is built up. When you do stuff like that, stuff like equals, when you harvest demonstrations, stuff like that, it helps keep a lot of negative stuff away.
Okay.
Tell everybody you want shit like that because they look at it like you're a witch or like you're crazy, whatever. Then they'll go to, you know, Mass on Sunday and eat the body of Christ, drink the blood and the wine, you know what I mean? From the preacher that's the little boy.
Right. Is there something going on with the women? Because now I see on TV like the Love and Hip Hops, the Baseball Wives, the Mob Wives, like the women are just getting worse. You know, it's more arguing, fighting. Like they never try to show the women in a positive light or doing something positive. it's always about them arguing about each other or what one have and the other one don't have. So, like, is there something going on with us women altogether, like all women, or is just like a black woman thing?
Well, primarily, in your case, in your life, it's a black woman thing. In your life as a woman, female living in the structure of America, it's a female thing. But primarily, quite as it's kept, it's targeted at you. It's about engendering your consciousness to be about a certain idea. And that is that you are there to please everyone sexually and serve everyone domestically and always be the backup to the white man and his white woman, like George Bush, his wife, probably, you know. And in that, he represents that trinity in their pseudo-religion, represents the image of shoe nut, tep nut, like you see the God in the middle with the woman and the other women on either side. That's also a symbol of the tree of life, where they'll have the black woman on the Bina side, the black side, and the white woman on the opposite side, in the middle, represents the middle pillar. So this is all a structural thing to get you to assimilate to an idea in which you are really a vessel for whatever they want to put through you and whatever they want you to do for the section. All as revenge against the black man for putting you in that position. This is what's marketed to you. You know what I mean? That when you with him, you do that. When you with us, you come up. You know what I mean?
I know, but they just make us look so desperate. Like, you know, you got one person that's begging for a ring. She was begging for a ring on the last season. Now she comes on again, and she's still begging for a ring. And I'm like, wow, they're making it seem like, you know, we're desperate, we're looking for love, and we'll take anybody who's an athlete or a rapper.
You know what's on this, too? Sex in the City. Before Sex in the City came out, right, I knew a girl who really, like, would drop everything she was doing. Black girl, well, you know, half Egyptian, whatever, but she would drop everything she was doing to run and see the show. You know what I'm saying? And what I found was after that, that became like the model, that became the mode of like womanhood to a degree. It was like the younger version of the Golden Girls, which basically is the future of Sex in the City girl. But that became the archetype that a lot of black women began to follow. And if you look at how these shows, all of these women, they actually have scenes that actually played out in episodes of Sex and the City, like when they're sitting around with the cocktails, or when they in shopping, or when they're or when they're in the car having a breakdown, or when they're having an argument with the guy. All of that is scripted from the show. You see what I'm saying? So they modeled this as a means of success. This is why all of the groupie chicks, after Superhead, opened the floodgate for them to start dropping time on all of the crazy sex stuff that all of these people were involved in. Because this is a way now for them to come up. See what I'm saying? But well,
how come nothing ain't happened to her? I mean, look how many people she exposed, and they just let her be.
Because that was her purpose. She was what they referred to as a weapon of mass destruction, or a biological weapon. Wow. Biological weapons aren't always what we perceive them to be. There are also things like that, where you get a woman or a man and you send him into a certain community or her into a certain community based upon however many demons or whatever they put up in her prior to her getting in through the trauma or whatever else. She then pollutes that, and look what she did. To the point now where all of these people are related somehow because they've all had sex with each other based upon the people they've been with. So in that, what you're looking at, when you see all of these people, is the aspect of them that knows that they have been in some sort of sexual thing with each other as well. because all of that is a means of control. Because the idea, again, is to keep the black woman fixated on the sexual aspect of herself, because they are trying to make her feel like that's the only asset that she has. So every picture of a black woman on a magazine is her from behind. She's looking at you over her shoulder, like.
That's true.
Because they have detached the black woman from her own self, from her own body. But see, there's a thing sometimes, though. That's why I'm glad you are saying it as an original woman, because there's a thing sometimes where you point that out. You know what I mean? It also depends on how you do it. But sometimes you point that out. There's almost like a defense thing that goes on with, like, they start to pull out examples of why it's okay to be on whatever it is you want. But so, like, people will be, black women will be for gay rights, they'll be for this, they'll be for that. But if you be like, yo, well, let's leave corporate America altogether and just have this, get a farm or whatever, it'd be like, nah. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah.
If Carol on the job is doing that, and it's like, oh, that's dope. You see what I'm saying? And that's
right.
not cool. Because there's almost this wedge between us that it's like, but it's like we walking on eggshells talking to each other. So we almost talk to the part of us that we think we in a relationship with than the person. So because I think you look at things like I do, I talk like you do. And because you think I want that, you do that. But we're not listening to each other. We're just having sex. You know what I'm saying? So we both, you know what I'm saying? So we both messed up because we both buying into the same BS. When all this dude and this woman want to be is the one in between us. Keep it really real. You know what I'm saying? That's all they want. They said the number one, not to say that this is an achievement, but they said the number one porno preference of people in the Middle East, these Arab rich things, is black women.
Wow.
they said that's all they buy. Black women and Hasidic Jews. What's up with that? I mean, Arab type of dudes and Hasidic Jews. That's all they into. Why? Because in every rap video, there's some black man throwing money at this chick, going all out for $1. No. So you against me, you and original women like this are like the gems because you actually see that there is an agenda at play. But you got to be careful because you don't know which one of your sisters is down with that shit. Because it's masked and it's hidden under the guise of financial and economic progress. See what I'm saying? So like if you want some other shit, so if you really want some sellout shit, and I say that not even in a harsh way, it's like I'm hating on the progress of black people.
Yeah, like when I complain to my friends because they watch the show or whatever, and I'm like, man, all these chicks do is complain and fight, and I don't want to watch that. And then, some of my friends are like, oh, you hating? Why are you hating on them? I'm like, I'm not hating on them. It's just they don't make women look good on TV, and that's just my opinion.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's funny to watch it and all that, but at the same time, it's like, come on now. All y'all, as soon as y'all get into the show, y'all arguing, y'all fighting. I never see y'all do things for the community, or they never show y'all doing something positive, white or black or Hispanic. And I'm like, is this a thing against women, period, or, what's up with this?
No, because ain't nobody forcing these women to take these roles and shit. They opt in for it. Shawnee
that's true.
O'Neal, after she got exposed for having the affair, after this dude had myriad affairs with men and women, you know what I'm saying? She then say, okay, well, I'm going to parlay this into a franchise where she's not even on the show. She's just a puppet master setting up people's agendas. Well,
and but here's the other thing. These things are called basketball wives, and these chicks are not even married sometimes. They just girlfriends. And I'm like, how you got on the show?
But that's how it is. The Jersey Shore people ain't nobody from Jersey. what you call it, that the fat one, the little short fat one, she's Chilean. She's from Chile. She ain't even. These two. This is what I'm saying. It's not real. That they've created a thing where it's not real. People acting like how these black women act is how all black women act. So when they see a situation, see one black woman in society or on the train or whatever acting like that, that's how all these black chicks are. So the only thing they're good for is sex or this or that. It's never what's on their mind. So all of the real images in the videos, chicks be from the neck down. You know what I mean? Or if it's a big girl, they'll have it from the chest up. You know, if it's a light-skinned guy in the video, it's dark-skinned girls behind him. If it's a dark-skinned guy, then it's going to be light-skinned Latino or white girls.
Yeah, that's true. Because I remember Chico DeBarge had a video, and it was nothing but black, dark-skinned women in the video. And I'm like, wow, he don't even have not one light-skinned girl in there.
Because he's light-skinned, so he can do that. But
wow.
You got to have dark-skinned girls around you. You got to have light-skinned girls around you. What they call the contrast, the visual contrast, which is BS. You know what I'm saying? Or if it's a newscaster, it'll be a black man and a white woman, or a black woman and a white man, or a white man, a black woman, and a white woman. Or, you see what I'm saying? So they have these different scenarios in which they're playing out this little subconscious thing in which they never see us in the same place together. And we subconsciously, or some of us subconsciously, is buying into that and then trying to look at the opposite of what we are to then find some sort of economic or financial upward movement, which is then deteriorating our ability to communicate each other further, which means the only way we communicate is when we have babies and have sex. Why is it that when we get together, the 6 months to a year of having a baby, we break up with the person who had the baby? When did that shit start? Who started that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true.
Who invented that? But if we do the knowledge, we take it back. It started with the whole latchkey kid shit when the mothers had to get the welfare and decided that they needed to say that the man wasn't there. So the man wasn't there. But again, men agreed to that shit. Because these was drugged up niggas that was just coming back from the Vietnam War, you see what I'm saying? Or was Panthers or whatever. Or if they was corporate, they was in college trying to get away from the black woman. You know what I'm saying? But the movie, you know what I'm saying? But because there ain't no real movie about it like that, other than like Dead President, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's it. But I thank you.
Oh, no doubt, I see. No doubt. I'm going to have to call you behind the scenes because I'm still waiting on the stuff that you were supposed to send to me.
No doubt.
All right. But I'm going to do that off air, though.
Yeah,
I'm going to holler at you about that off air. All right, then. No problem. Thanks a lot.
All right, Queen.
Peace.
Peace. on Super Heru Radio.
Peace.
Peace.
I got a question.
What's up?
Why in these times aren't we using these shows to just tell the brothers and sisters to read the scriptures, the Bible, and especially the Quran, not on behalf of any affiliation, other than with their own mind?
Why are we telling people to read the Bible, Quran, and what was other than the Torah for their own reasons and not for the reasons of religion?
Yeah, not even so much to use the word religion, but just you're saying it exactly what I mean. Because, you know, we hear things in there about bear patiently with them for a while. My plan is firm. And just everything in the Quran is just beyond all other books, and it's what all other books by Manly P. Hall or anybody else would want to say. but the times don't allow them to say. And it gets us deeper as often as you read it. And it's not about, anything, Nation of Islam or Christian or Muslim or any of these things. I can see the word Muslim with submission, but everything is about the individual. I like how you say individual, but I don't like how you or any other show doesn't insist on these scriptures first and foremost, beginning and end, and seem to beat around the bush and talk about other things that keep all of us distracted. When that if we really did what it told us to do and really put those words on our heart, like how it says in the Bible that I'm going to give you the word and make my laws in your heart and get this in our memory, not on behalf of being an Arab or being any of these other things, but on behalf of what matters. And just to get the real clarity, because when you do that at night and you go into your next day and you stay up, you're reading it some, you praying some, you meditating some, you go into your next day, your day falls into your hands like nothing else. I'm talking about the Bible and the Quran. I haven't read the Pope of Old, but I'd like for you to tell me about it.
Okay, so you're saying that because I don't tell people to read the Quran or the Bible first and foremost, that I'm somehow diverting their consciousness to other things, because the Bible and the Quran are the end-all to be-all to all written knowledge on the planet. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, the Quran definitely is that. But I'm not saying definitely to say that on you per se, because I've heard you say good things in reference to it, So I'm not going to go completely there. But that is something that I know that, is something that we'll be held accountable for, and it needs to be done because they need to know it. Everyone hasn't just read it front to back. That needs to happen, but everybody, black and white, has something to say about it, especially the Quran, though they haven't read it, And not on behalf of Nation of Islam and any of these things, on behalf of themselves. Forget all of them groups and names.
I advocate that. I've always advocated that personally. I can't speak for anybody else. And I don't, I don't really know what anybody else is on like that. All I can speak for me personally is that I look at the Bible and the Quran as just as what you do. It's just that in my position, I'm speaking to a lot of different people, and they don't all share that view. So it would be, I'm not the type of person to tell somebody that this or anything is the end-all, be-all other than the Creator. Me personally, if we talk about the Bible, says the temple of God is within, and it says that remembrance of Allah is worth more than prayer. So when I think of Islam, in my worldview, when I think of it, I identified it as the truth that has manifested in anything that is glorifying the truth that is Allah is God. Allah is the name of God that came down from that form of knowledge from that particular ancestral line. But that's not the only ancestral line that I come from. So all of these things are of Allah. And all of these things are in the garden of His wisdom. Therefore, I'm not an extremist in that opinion. So if you feel that or if you misunderstood or felt in any way that I was in some way trying to draw people away or not necessarily focus on that primarily, in my opinion, like you said, this is about people getting this knowledge and understanding it on the level of where they at.
Yes, sir, but no, I don't mean that,
like
though.
that. I'm in support of that. There are people who feel that the Bible is better. I'm in support of that. Whatever they want to be in terms of making themselves more aware of their spiritual essence as the evidence of God. You understand? That's what I'm primarily about.
No, sir. I don't understand that, though, and I'm not being extreme because it comes down to the truth, and people need to experience and know things on their own for themselves. And I'm not speaking on behalf of Islam. To me, that's a word, and like Bruce Lee said, words connotating fear, and they don't have nothing to do with it. I'm just talking about the book, and I'm just talking about the scriptures. And when you read them and you recognize that voice, it is that voice that is the so-called Torah or the Old Testament or the Bible. You know, that is what the Quran is, and people need to know that, and it's going to come out no matter what, if y'all are trying to hide it or what. And it's never going to be about no Islam and no Muslim and no Arab. It's going to be about the word.
I agree with that. You know what I'm saying? However,
that's not extreme with me. That's not extreme with me, because we're talking about a lot of things. You know, and all of these things in the world don't matter. You know, we got to get to just reading the book and be fine with our praying and meditating, you know, and not bearing with them patiently for a while. For truly, my plan is firm. You know, forget all of the scary things, because it ain't nothing happening. You said a great quote, the kingdom is everywhere. You remember you said that?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm showing and proving that. By doing this consistently, by the grace of the Creator, for this amount of time, regardless of everything that has happened, to not only show and prove that, but to show and prove that this thing is bigger than just what we perceive it to be. It's about, sometimes I build in my meditation on the wisdom that has been shown me to know of the things that I don't know yet, and how I've been protected in terms of knowledge from that. Because the way that things are now are reaching the point in which the truth is going to be known regardless of who or what. However, that's going to be judged by the individual. It's not up to me or you or anybody else to say that this is what's going to happen to these people, this is what's going to happen to these people. It's already written what's going to happen. So it's really about us communicating to those people in the language that they can communicate, in which I can say, yeah, well, I'm not necessarily a Muslim, but you should read the Quran. But if you do read the Quran, read the original. Don't read the one that came out 200 years later, that came out by the pale Arab, that was there to dethrone our history of who we culturally contributed to that book. Don't just focus on the aspect of the remnants of it in which you deem necessary. Look at the whole thing, if that's what you want to do. Because in the end, I can't make nobody do nothing. You understand? It's going to be what it's going to be. They're going to do what they're going to do. All I can do is say that there is this. If you do this, this is going to happen. If you don't believe me, read about it.
I understand that, brother, but do you understand that most people have never even read the book? And again, for anybody listening,
I'm not turned on to it.
For anybody listening, I'm not no Muslim. I'm not no Christian. I'm not no Islam. I'm none of that stuff. But the same thing with, Buddhist writings. But I feel like a lot of these things try to turn men into liking men, Mm-hmm. But anyway, I'm not no Muslim. I'm not no Islam. I'm none of that. And the reason that I listen to you, brother, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? The reason I listen to you, one thing about you, man, I believe the first book that was ever written was these trees, this sky, these birds, before anything happened where we needed these reminders. And you seem to be like there with that. Like you seem to know something about that too. As far as why that I feel like my ears were turned to listening to you, and I've been listening for a while. And I appreciate many of the things, but now I'm like, we got to let people know that we got to read these books. I don't know if we're scared of them or what's going on, but let's get these books in us, because it's going to be a whole lot of benefit for us, man. It's definitely a reminder to calm our nerves, and, their plan, them being heaven, their plan is firm, and the shaitans, or whatever we want to call them, they can't get us, under the conditions that are written about in the Quran and in Psalms and all the great books of the Old Testament. Alyssa looking at the whole Syrian army. Alyssa looking at the whole Syrian army and saying, what is that compared to heaven, or compared to God or mom or dad or wherever the people coming from with it, because I'm not trying to go out of that. I'm just saying fit whatever that you are calling heaven into when that you read the words Allah or whatever in the Quran. Don't get thrown off because of people telling you whatever. Read the book and take your understanding to it and just see the amazing things that it adds to what you understand. I'm not talking to you, dude. I'm talking to listeners and myself, Lou.
I want you. This is the platform. This is why we got the show, because obviously the people need to hear that. But it's coming from the people, because that's you. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's us. Like, this is what we're supposed to do. So I'm glad that you could call in and do that. And I appreciate you calling in and supporting us this long.
You know what, though? You saying that, I got to check myself and appreciate you having the platform and putting yourself out there no matter what I feel about anything with you, man, because you definitely did that and you showed me respect. So thank you for that.
Thank you, brother.
And I respect you too, brother, and I apologize and pardon me for any lack of respect.
No, I don't feel that, man. This is why we have the show, man. I'd rather people tell me how they feel than talk about it to other people who don't know me. I'm glad that you call in to do that. I always appreciate direct communication more than conjecture. So I appreciate you respecting me enough to hear your opinion and us showing the people that we can dialogue on it and come to the same consensus. You know, we need to be unified in being able to communicate. And I appreciate that, brother. So, yeah, guys, .301 on Spirit Radio. Peace. .225 on Spirit Radio. Hey, can you guys still hear me in the chat? Let me know. Yeah, great. Yeah, man. So it really just comes down to that, guys. You gotta just do the knowledge to what's going on. As the brother said, the Quran, the Bible, the great aspect of manifestation of the word. You know what I mean? Made to the point. Like sometimes, right? You don't look at things that have enthralled the minds of so many people. You know, because we usually get these things from the interpretation of what somebody else or some other book said about it. So that's why I say in anything that you put knowledge to, when you really go for self and you really do the true knowledge to it, you start to go into the deeper recesses of what you're building on. But it gets to a point where spirit got to take over, because if you're only building on things from a scholastic or economic or whatever specific value, you'll retain or attain the material, but there's going to be something that you feel is missing. And that missing thing is the symbolic appreciation of the journey. Sometimes you got to go through something, and then after you go through it, something else happens later that reminds you symbolically of how far you've come. And those are the things that make you identify with what it means to be real or human. Even that word is debatable. Or let's say man. You know what I'm saying? And whatever it is, it is exactly what you choose it to be, because it's still up to you to perceive it. And your perception of it is what manifests and makes it real here. The agreement. And that agreement is so instantaneous that every choice we make is creating an alternate reality which the other choice would make. You know what I'm saying? So who's to say that these are not, so when they call Allah Lord of the world, they're not just talking about the world in the outer solar system that we can talk about that have been popping up on the Hubble telescope and the Focus One satellite and all of that. It's actually the multi-dimensional, interdimensional, subatomic world. It's all of them. That's true. GRA said that Azrael said it perfectly. Just that metaphysics is not a religion. It's not. It's not. Consciousness is not a religion. If there is any religion on earth, I would say art. You know what I'm saying? Because it's the natural creative process of something that has to come out to express the human condition, the condition of man and woman. It's something that is spontaneous and is so ineffectual that it can affect and shake the very foundation of what a society is. Operation High Jump didn't just end with these people in Antarctica. It was a part of the whole assassination protocol. Got flipped into that. They said, well, we can't get the Germans or whatever, so what we're going to do is we can't stop them in Antarctica and not just in Antarctica. So the other ones, what we'll do is we'll target the ones that got away. Not saying Lenin was a direct Nazi, but he was the product of the British aspect of those families that got out during paperclip. Why would the FBI have a file on him? They had a file on everybody. Because this is what they do. That was the beginning of the surveillance age. Hoover. That's why he was so important. That's why they just created a movie to them. He was a turncoat black man. So everything is not what it seems. Yet the truth is always what it is, which is everything except a lie. So again, anybody wants to holler at us, please do at houseofl@hotmail.com for the upcoming class we got coming up in I think a week. To send you the flyer. It's going to be a real good one. This will be, I think, our 18th, 19th cycle, even 20th cycle, I'm not sure. So thank everybody that's been participating. And thank you, everybody, for the donation. It's helping get a lot of things in order in terms of what we can produce and the output rate which we can do it. I really appreciate it. And we'll build soon. Peace.